Hi, everybody. It is episode 540 of PodQuest.
Hey.
It is Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. I am Chris. With me is Droo
Hello.
and Walnut.
Yeah, I'm here.
How are you guys doing?
Drew, we're going to need that hey a little bit louder, so can we do it, re-record it now? We'll give you a quiet sound. Re-record it right now and Kyle can put it in
Absolutely
post.
not.
Okay.
Oh, man. The more you talk, the worse you sound. I thought I sounded a little bad just because I'm still all congested and whatnot. But,
Well, you know, the Wings went ahead and scored 19 goals the next night, so voice was already shaky after the concert, and then I had too much fun at the Wings game.
nice. Yeah, I had very little voice. I mean, like, obviously you heard me on Saturday. And then Sunday, it was also not a ton better, but today it's just, I am congested. So for anyone wondering, Drew and I flew to Toronto for about 18 hours, give or take.
I mean,
20?
like 21, I
Well,
think.
So we left at 11:30. We got there at 1:30. So that's 2 hours. So 22.
21, 22 hours.
It was very cold. I lost my voice. Drew lost his voice. But we saw Boys Night Out play their first headliner in 15 years.
Yeah,
It was a good time.
it was.
That is probably one of the best concerts I've been to in a long time, just because everybody in the crowd was 100% into almost every song.
Mhm.
They're not Toronto-based, are they?
They are.
Yeah, they're from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Okay. I was going to say, I honestly, for some reason, thought they were Jersey-based.
A lot of people do because the record label they were signed to back when they were around originally was New Jersey based, and they toured with a lot of Jersey bands and played the area every other month for several years in a row.
Pretty much.
I thought it was. I was going to say that Toronto is an interesting choice for a first show back, or for a first headliner back. But if they're from Toronto, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's funny. So after the concert, when we were kind of standing around outside, Drew, I don't know if you remember the dude who just kind of tagged along. He had the old school B&O hat on.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to him, and I don't know if you had walked up at that point, but Canada is weird for promoting bands. There's do you guys, Drew? You probably know Alexis on Fire.
Yeah.
Rich, I don't know if you've ever heard or listened to them.
I've heard the name, I'm sure, but I've probably never listened.
So another Toronto-based emo post-hardcore type band. Not all that popular in the U.S. B&O was definitely a bigger name in the U.S. Apparently very popular in the Toronto area where they're from because they were actually signed to a Canadian record label. So they got some airplay on the radios and stuff like that up there. Because I guess Canada radio has some weird guidelines where they have to play a certain percentage of Canadian music. And they have four things that check off whether or not it qualifies. And one of them is a Canadian based label. And Boys Night Out didn't have that, so they never really got played or promoted up there.
Weird.
Yeah, I thought that was super weird. But yeah.
I mean, in Canada's defense, I never heard Boys Night Out on local radio either, so.
Well, yeah, because they don't play that sort of music on the radio down here. But
yeah.
We also got Warped Tour, and I don't know that Canada did. I don't know if there were any stops in Toronto or anything like that.
I think there were. I feel like I heard someone saying about going to Warped Tour and whatever, Barrie or whatever suburb of Toronto.
So, there were a lot of Americans at that show too.
Fair.
A lot of people either drove or flew up from the States. But yeah, turns out, I didn't mention it while we were there. Flying with congestion is kind of painful.
Mm-hmm.
Never experienced that before. Don't recommend that. And it definitely turned my congestion. I think at least it turned this congestion into a sinus infection.
Oof.
So now I'm dealing with a sinus infection and all the fun like pain and pressure that comes with that. So good times all around.
Try having swimmer's ear and congestion and going up on a plane.
Ooh, when did you do that?
It was many years ago when I went to Florida.
That sounds fucking miserable.
Oh, it was horrible it's basically I don't know how much you felt it, but it's basically as we were going up into the air is when it started to bother me. And then once we were in the air, like, and everything was equalized, it was fine. But like it was just going up into the air.
Yeah, like everybody gets like the ear popping on planes, and like that's fine. Usually it's pretty easy to like pop your ears once as you're going up and like clear everything up. When you're congested, like it's way worse. They don't pop as cleanly. And like you start to get like that pressure to the point where it hurts a little bit.
I had one instance. This wasn't even on a plane. I was out in PA, out in Downingtown at my cousin's. And it was a day that we were getting a major storm coming through, but it was a quick storm. It was a very high pressure event. I felt like I was going to die. I was getting pressure in my sinuses and everything from just the pressure in the air.
Yeah,
it was the worst.
And so this wouldn't have been as bad if on a longer flight. The flight to Toronto is so short that by the time you reach like cruising altitude, and like you do get that like equalization, the plane is descending, and immediately everything just starts again. Because like Drew, it was like an hour and like 25 minutes, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm gonna keep making you talk just because I think it's funny. But yeah,
sounds like he's been smoking 4 packs of cigarette a day.
Right.
Well, this is what he gets for being a sports fan.
Yeah.
Yep.
You did this to yourself.
I didn't say I didn't.
I know you didn't, but I am clarifying. This is your own fault. Anyway, Rich, what's on the agenda?
On the agenda, Cobb, you watched Terrifier 3. I played the game Landmarks by... I always forget the name of the company. Floodgate, yes, thank you.
It was in the message you sent, too.
Yeah, and I had to look it up. And I just gotten an email from Floodgate yesterday saying, like, hey, thanks for talking to us. Make sure your information's updated in our newsletters. And I responded to it, and so I had to double-check that when I was sending the message. But yeah, by Floodgates, one of the review copies of games that we got during PAX. And then, Cobb, you read the new Stormlight Archive book, Wind and Truth, which I don't know if you watched that Nerd Forge video, but the books that they made for that were really cool.
It's just, so I did not watch the video. I was under the impression it is a single book that includes all 5 of them.
No, so they did one for somebody else, which you had mentioned.
Wheel of Time.
What's that?
The Wheel of Time.
The Wheel of Time, which was all of them in one single book. Yeah. This one, they actually got in, and that one, what she did was she just bought all the copies of the book and put it into one giant book.
Yeah.
This one, what they did is they actually reprinted. They got the legal rights to reprint exactly one of every book, including Wind and Truth, which was not out at the time they started the project, in tome size. So these books were friggin', I don't know, huge. Like, if you think a tome, that's how big it is. Like, I don't know how big you think a tome is. They said the size of the paper, but they were the size of her body, her waist to her neck, basically. And there was all 5 of them. Yeah, they were huge, and they made leather bound backing and everything. They were awesome. She did custom art for each book.
They're probably significantly thinner too, being that big.
No. They still it was the same number of words on each page. So they were just as thick, if not thicker, actually.
That's I don't know. That seems weird then, because like every one of those books is over 1,000 pages. Wind and Truth is 1,330 pages.
Mm-hmm.
So like
these books were huge.
Yeah, like I saw pictures of them. I didn't watch the video because who watches videos?
I do.
I don't.
It's a fun video. They're fun people. It's Nerd Forge for anyone, but they made that.
I saw like pictures of the Wheel of Time they did too, which those books there's 14 of those, and I want to say they're all between 700 and 1,000 pages. So like that thing was enormous, and you actually couldn't read it. Like it's really just a novelty item.
Mm-hmm. And apparently, like he has it on the backdrop of like all of his video calls and stuff like that. But yeah, like for that one, she just cannibalized all of the books and turned it into one giant book. Whereas this one, like they got the rights to print exactly one copy of every book. And so, like when it came to making them. Putting the books together, they were like, we can't fuck up because we are legally not allowed to reprint this book. And they had to, the printer that they needed to print the pages in the size they wanted was $1 million printer. So they needed to find a printing company that could do that. They found one and needed that company to sign an NDA because they weren't allowed to print more than one copy. And they weren't allowed to talk about the project.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah.
But enough of that. What's the first thing? Oh, Terrifier. I watched the Terrifier 3.
Did, man.
Yeah, for some reason I thought we were talking about yours first, but I realized I didn't want to talk about my stuff back to back, so I put yours in the middle.
Man, I have all their stuff you didn't even include in here.
Oh, shit. I meant to do that. I'm sorry.
Rude.
You're right. I am rude. The first thing we're talking about is Richie. You finished up some Let's Plays, finally.
Yeah. They air this week. And I don't mind like throwing out the spoilers because it's just I beat the game, so everyone like this isn't a it's not like a challenge run or a like play until I die run, so I'm not worried about like spoilers or anything like that. It's not a survival run. It's just a straight up I played the game. This is my second and third Let's Play that I've completed, and somehow managed, even with starting them 8 weeks apart from each other. I think let me just double check to make sure.
So
I have that number right.
While you're double checking, Drew, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it like September that Richie was telling us that he thought he was going to be wrapping up both of these in like the next couple of weeks?
That sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah.
But I couldn't confirm.
I mean, I knew they were all coming close. Even Enshrouded was coming close, and it is close. However, Enshrouded had new content drop. Okay. Just as the week I was recording the final episode I would have recorded for Enshrouded, they had a new region get released and new content dropped. So that added more time to the game. And that was about a month ago. To the data recording. Which today's the 17th. But yeah, Bloodborne finishes on episode 37. My time at Porsche ends on episode 41. So they were 4 weeks separate from each other for the initial weekly releasing. And I somehow managed to finish them both on the same week. Now, granted, I was ready to finish Porsche 2 weeks ago, but it's just been grinding in-game for 2.5 weeks or more, which each week takes roughly 2.5 hours. So the last episode of Porsche, I cut down from recording for 4 hours to 47 minutes. Damn. Because all I'm doing is a rinse and repeat, same thing over and over. And for Porsche, I rolled credits. There's still quests I can do to push more into the game, but I don't care about it. There's still things I could do because it is a farming sim game, like a Stardew. but none of the characters interest me to want to date them. None of the characters in Portia aren't interesting enough. I hear they're better in Sandrock. So, well, yeah, I was able to finally beat my time at Portia after 41 weeks, almost the entire year, and I was able to beat Bloodborne after 37 weeks.
I feel like Portia, you should have just fucking stretched it those extra 11 weeks.
No, I was done with it. To be honest, I will get into Portia first. What happens in Portia? Like, it's a farm sim, and like if I cared about the characters and cared about making a story around some of these characters or trying to romance, I could have taken more time and had a little bit more like fun with that aspect. But none of the characters were interesting to me. In my time at Portia, there are the Dawa siblings, which there are 7 of them, and they are all copy-paste copies of each other. They're all like short, little, stout dwarf dudes that walk around town. They look exactly the same, except they're all just different colors. And it's like it felt like this was their first game, so it felt like they were stretching and trying for something interesting, and like they might have just ran out of ideas for characters or something like that. But like none of the romanceable characters are really interesting or really stick out to you. Or stuck out to me. The game kind of pushes you to romance one specific character because like your farm is right next to their farm, so you kind of talk with them a lot. But it was just like the final quest of the game is to build a ship, an airplane. However, to build the airplane, you need a ton of rare ingredients. You need sapphires and you need crystals. There are 2 spaces on the map that you can get crystals from. And it requires, I don't even know. Let's say you need 5 pieces of crystal per item you need, and you need at least 60 items to craft this spaceship, or not spaceship, this airplane. And then on top of that, like, you need the time to craft it, the titanium, and since there's only 2 places to get crystal, that only respawns like every couple of days, and each time you get it, you get like 3 pieces of crystal. So the easiest way to actually get crystal is to have crystal trees that every 7 days will get you, like, if you're properly fertilized, like 20 crystal per tree. However, I didn't know that. I didn't know I needed all this crystal when I got to the end of the game. So I planted my crystal tree, and it's 18 days for it to grow fully. And then 7 days after that for it to fruit. So the start of episode 41, the finale of Portia, was the first day back. I ended episode 40 mad because I needed to wait 7 more days for the crystal. And then episode 41, the first 5 minutes of 41 are the 7 days that I wasted. Maybe more like 20 minutes, maybe more like 15 minutes of 41, were the 7 days that of me just fast forwarding through the 7 days, doing commissions, going mining, going here, going there, boom. And that's it. That's all I did for a week straight in game. It was very grindy.
That doesn't sound like fun.
It was fun, but like it wasn't fun to make content for it. Because there's nothing happening and I couldn't find a way to make stuff happen. And like I said, if I cared about the other characters, I could have like, all right, let's spend some time focusing on being friends with this character. Let's try to be friends with let's actually try to befriend Mint and maybe date him, or let's try to befriend Sam and try to date her or something like that. But none of the characters are really that interesting. So the play dates aren't really that fun. There's not really much you can, like, they're kind of boring and repetitive. So like it was fun in a sense of like it was just kind of chill and I just did it day by day and it was just a rhythm for me playing it. But as a content creation standpoint, the series, in my opinion, was probably incredibly boring. And it would take you upwards of 50 hours. No, upwards of, let's say, 30 to 40 hours to finish this series if you were to watch them all the way through. And I don't blame you if you don't. It was it was an experiment for me. It was a hard series to make a let's play out of because of the nature of the beast of what kind of game it is. I do plan on eventually playing Sandrock. I believe I own it, but it's going to be like a live stream game. And same with Evershine when that comes out. It'll be a live stream game. I'm not going to do a let's play for it. At best, if I were to do this, it'll be like a live stream and recap kind of show. But I'm probably not going to do a let's play for a game like this. And now I know, it was an experiment. It was a perfectly fine game. It was enjoyable. It was nice if you like farm sims. But it's just it got a little frustrating by the end because I was putting myself on that time constraint of let's beat this game so we can start something new.
Yeah. That also makes sense. Now,
yeah.
Do you know what your next let's plays are? Like for sure?
Well, I have a couple of ideas. I haven't settled on anything yet, but let's quick talk about Bloodborne because there was something new about Bloodborne that I did was the DLC. I was able to beat the DLC, which I had never done before. And God, that solidified that being my favorite FromSoft game, even though I've only played 3 FromSoft games out of the what do they got?
6,
8.
Is it 8?
So it's Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Demon's Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and Sekiro.
Oh, Sekiro. I always forget that's
Sekiro,
a them game.
7.
I always think of that and what was the other one? Not by them. It was by like Team Ninja. Neo.
No,
Neo.
Neo, yeah.
I always think Sekiro is Neo and that it's not a From Software game.
Yeah, I've not played it, but I was super happy with beating that, because I'd never done the DLC. The DLC starts off you fight Ludwig, and he is everyone's wall. You get stuck on him. He is the hardest boss to fight in pretty much all of Bloodborne, if not a lot of FromSoft games outside of Melania. He hits hard, he hits quick. His first phase isn't too terrible, but his second phase is really strong. But his first phase is super rapid attacking. His second phase is kind of slower attacking, but stronger attacking. And it's just a lot of back and forth of trying to figure them out. And the funniest thing was, of all the major bosses of the Bloodborne DLC, Ludwig, Lawrence, and Orphan of Kos, it took me 3 sessions to beat all 3 of them. So there are 3 episodes each for Ludwig, Lawrence, and Orphan of Kos of me trying to defeat these bosses. And then there's 2 other bosses in the DLC that the first one I beat, or it's the third to last boss in the DLC I beat on in 3 tries. The second to last boss I beat my first try, not even knowing I was going into a boss fight, which was to me hilarious. I started the episode,
you just wandered in and a boss fight happened.
Yeah, so it was probably, let's see, I would say it was probably episode 40 was when I defeated Kos. Or no, not 40. Episode 36 was when I defeated Kos. So I would say it would probably be 31 or 32. Episode 31 or 32, I just walk up, and there she is. That's the first thing I do, and I fight her, and I beat her. And I was like, this is a fun fight. I'm sorry I beat you so fast and didn't know that there was a boss here to make a bigger deal out of it. But it was a really fun fight. I felt super accomplished. It was really cool to beat the DLC for the first time. I'm disappointed in myself because I know that there's a hidden boss in all of Bloodborne called the Moon Presence that I did defeat back when I first played it. But I thought there was a different sequence of getting the items you need to get them that I was like, alright, once I get to a certain point, then I'll go get them. But I messed up 2 of the chances of getting the item, so I did not get to fight the Moon Presence. So like I did so I beat it, but I didn't defeat all the bosses because I missed that one boss. But I did like I have done that before, and I even in my video that's coming out on Friday, I linked to my saved playthrough that I uploaded back when I originally beat it because I felt like no one would believe me that I beat the game. So I uploaded it on YouTube because that's how you guys treated me back in the day. But yeah, and then it's funny, like I beat the Orphan of Kos episode 36, and then episode 37 I go and fight the last two bosses, the last two of three bosses, the two that I could fight. And one shot on both. And it was like no problem. It's the second to last boss of Bloodborne, if you're excluding the secret boss, the Moon Presence. Second last boss, which is Margot's Wet Nurse, is literally the easiest boss in the game. I've never taken more than one try to defeat Margot's Wet Nurse. And it's the funniest thing to me that she's so easy.
Is that like the one easy boss in the game?
No. What would be the easiest boss of the game would probably be the Witches of Hemlock Grove, because there's two of them, but they disappear, and if you can go into it without any insight, which is you can just spend all your insight and have it at 0, then all you're fighting are the witches, and they don't really do strong attacks. The second easiest boss would probably be the emissary, because it's just a bunch of small enemies that if you're fighting close range, you're doing a lot of round swinging, you're hitting all the smaller enemies, and it's one specific small enemy that when you take it to half health, it grows, but it just doesn't hit hard, it doesn't do a lot. I've never had trouble with that boss. And then probably finally would be Dark Beast Parl, because every time I think 2 times I've played this game, I forgot. The first time I didn't know there was a boss where it was. The second time I forgot he was there, and I went into it being incredibly overleveled and just face rolled the entire fight. Because it's like it's a boss that like you don't have to go to, but you could avoid a whole section of the game if you go to it if you like fight it at a certain point. But yeah, it was I'm sure it could be hard if you fight it sooner than I do. But I usually fight it super late in the game because I just forget it's there. And you can also summon in an ally to help you fight that, like an AI control character.
I forgot they did that in there.
Yeah, and it just makes it even easier. But yeah, Bloodborne, the new Hunters or the old Hunters DLC. It was so satisfying to fight them, to finish it. It's supposed to be all the hardest bosses of the game. Some of them were incredibly annoying, like Orphan of Kos, which is the final boss, was so frustrating. But like every time I fought it, I got a little bit better. And one thing I loved about doing this game as a Let's Play series was as I edited it, I learned more as well. As I was cutting it together, I was like, oh, you know what? I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to like.
Oh, that's actually kind of cool.
I was watching the game tape, and I was like, okay, you know what? That I need to recognize this. I need to recognize that. Like every time I fought the bosses, like specifically, specifically Lawrence and Orphan of Kos, I was like, okay. From editing, I learned this. From editing, I need to take this slower. From editing, I learned I have to do this or whatever. And every time I tried it, I got a little bit better, and it felt good to do, and I was able to beat it. As for the next Let's Play series, I am cutting my Let's Plays down to 2 a week. Again, I'm going back down to
3 right now, right?
I was doing 3. We're cutting back down to 2. We are continuing with Enshrouded until I finish all available content for that, which will probably be in a few weeks. And I am planning on bringing back for at least 1 or 2 challenges 7 Days to Die. Something that's easy to record and cut. Because over the next upcoming weeks, I am planning on doing a lot of like a PAX vlog and content for both the PodQuest YouTube as well as my YouTube for the games and stuff we saw. I have 3 vlogs planned from PAX that I'm going to be putting up on my personal channel, plus all the meetings that we did, or that I did, that I recorded. I'm going to be putting up on either on the YouTube channel, on our YouTube channel, on the OneQuest YouTube channel, as well as I played Landmarks, which was a review copy. That's 2 videos I'm going to be cutting together. One for my channel, one for the OneQuest channel. And like, I'm going to be working on trying to do more board game content in general.
Nice.
So the idea now is to replace that 3rd Let's Play with the board game content. Up until I run out of board game content or can't really figure out more board game content. So just a warning for anybody I do board game nights with. I'm bringing my camera and tripod, and I'm going to be recording board game gaming when we do it. No matter, as long as I get at least 1 game per board game night, I'm going to be recording it. Like, yeah, that's just, I want to do more board game content. I have plans on even doing, like, I got the game Set a Watch, I believe. And it is a 1 to 4 player, 1 to 6 player game. I plan on even trying to do like a solo play of that. I have the Monster Hunter World board game that has a 1 player mode that I might try to do that. I might even do that on like a Monster Hunter Monday or something like that. So like I do want to branch out onto either more board game content, or just maybe just in general vlog content outside of the Let's Plays, to make it like a little bit easier to still release everyday content, but B, like, try to see if I can get more viewers from other stuff. Because it like right now it was the hardest part, but it was also in part the games I was playing. The hardest part was finding the time to record at least 3 hours, 1 hour of each game, and then cut that all together. But if I'm already doing a board game night with friends, and I pull out the tripod and say, all right, if we're playing this game, I need to record it. But don't worry about whatever you have to say. I will be cutting out any audio that isn't needed. Then that's fine, and I'll just be vlogging over whatever the board game is. And like, see how that goes. And if things go better, then great. If things, if it goes good enough to where like I can maybe eventually get multiple multicams and record 2 angles, because all I currently have is 1 angle of the board and us playing over it, and it's just going to be me talking over whatever we're playing, with me maybe recording a couple bits here and there in post about like how to play the game or what the board looks like in a better angle or whatever. We'll see how it goes. It's all an experiment right now.
You'll figure it out. Trial and error.
Yeah, but for now, because 7 Days to Die 1.0 released like 6 months ago, I can finally get in. I'm going to do a challenge series of 1.0, at least do a vanilla challenge series, which is just a permadeath series, and maybe replay either what were the 2? Either MacGyver or Farm Life, one or the other. Maybe MacGyver, because I liked that one a lot more. Replay that series, those in version 1.0 to see if that changes things up. But once Enshrouded is over, we're gonna move to what is it? Shit, why am I blanking? Subnautica Below Zero.
Oh, nice. I've heard good things about Subnautica.
Well, I mean, I did Subnautica 1 that you didn't watch, obviously. But there was a sort of spiritual successor to Subnautica, which was Below Zero, which is, I think, on a separate planet. I think it's on a different planet, but it's an ice planet that you can actually spend time above and below sea. But Subnautica 2 is releasing in 2025, so we're going to be doing... I want to get through Below Zero before Subnautica 2 comes out to maybe try to capitalize on Subnautica 2 being released this year.
Nice. Yeah, I totally forgot that you are the person that I heard good things about Subnautica from.
Yeah, yeah. I figured.
But hey, I remembered that I heard good things. That's what's important.
Look, at least you remembered, unlike some people who don't even remember about my cookie day. Talking to you, Xeno Alien, which you probably don't even listen to the show.
Hey, Drew and I both watched that a little bit.
I wasn't talking to you, though. I was talking to
No,
Xeno Alien.
I'm saying both of us actually tuned into that.
I know. I rated out to him on Friday after cookies. And the first thing he says is, "What were you playing today?" And my response was, "Wow, you don't even remember what day it was today." Because he hadn't showed up all day. And so like I was like, I'm gonna shame him. I'm gonna shame him for not showing up. And he's like, he reads it and he's like, "Don't even remember what day." What? Oh my god! And he's just like, it was cookies today. I even bought bits to be able to donate and this and that and blah blah blah. And I missed it. And I was like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. He even messaged me on Discord. He's like, "I'm so sorry, dude." I'm like, "Don't worry about it." If he was like, if you really want to still do the donation, next time you see me live on stream, send me the bits and I'll add it to the donation. Which, by the way, I guess that's something else we could talk about. My cookie stream was pretty successful. We got $51 in donations. So that's going on top of the $100 donation that on top of the $50 donation I was going to make. So $101 is going to the Trevor Project. Probably in January when I actually get the payout from Twitch.
And Rich, what is the Trevor Project?
It is. I know they support LGBTQIA youth, but I don't know like exactly what they. I just know they're like a big resource for LGBTQIA youth.
Okay, I apologize for putting you on the spot. I assumed you knew more about them. That's why you picked them.
I know that they're a good and reputable source for the LGBT community, and so that's why like I picked them. I know a lot of people who support them, and who'd like to support them, and I know a lot of people that talk about it. But they do a lot of work about helping with gender identity and learning about and dealing with mental health, suicide prevention, things like that. It's with what we have coming up in the next 4 years. Anything I can do to help the LGBT community is what I'm going to do.
I mean, yes, that is the right call. I had no idea what the Trevor Project did at all. So,
so yeah, they do like crisis research, support groups, advocacy. Like they do it all for LGBT youth, specifically for I'm sure for all LGBT, but specifically for youth as well. Like they aim to help the youths. I can't say it like Schmidt does.
I don't know what that means.
New Girl.
Oh,
Serious. Schmidt.
Well, I have not thought about that show in a very long time.
I love that show. It's great.
It was a funny show. The Brooklyn Nine-Nine crossover was great.
Yeah.
All right, moving along.
Sure.
All right.
How's Terrifier 3? How was it?
It was terrifying.
Was it though?
No, it wasn't. So it picks up odd bit of a weird timeline movie. So it actually opens up 6 years later, with Art the Clown murdering a whole family on Christmas Eve, and then eating the cookies that were left out for Santa while dressed as Santa. And then it cuts back to the end of the first movie where we see Art the Clown's like decapitated body in like the old rundown amusement park thing that the final fight happened in. And the cop finds him, and the body comes back to life with no head, kills the cop, takes the cop's head, puts it on its own body. Not in like a weird like the head then becomes part of Art's body and is animated. He literally just walks around with a severed head, holding it onto his shoulders. Which I thought was funny. It then cuts to the insane asylum that the last movie like actually ends at, where the victim from the first movie that survives is there after murdering or mutilating a talk show host. And at the end of the first movie, she gives birth to the head of Art that was chopped off. Because these movies are fucked. And then Chris Jericho is in it, Drew.
No, how about that?
He plays like an orderly attendant person at the insane asylum. And I forgot
Okay.
he was in this scene at the end of the second one too, and got murdered in this one. And then like the movie proceeds to kind of jump ahead to like that 6 years later thing. And both Art the Clown and the mutilated victim from the first movie are basically like, I don't know, killer buddies now. And it seems like the victim from the first movie is now like the incarnation of the demon that was like following Art around in the second movie, like the thing that kind of like is giving him his powers. And the girl from the first movie who survived, or from the second movie who survived, is just fresh out of either like a rehab hospital or a psychiatric hospital. It's not entirely clear which one. Could be either one, considering what she went through. And is living with like her aunt, uncle, and cousin. And as you can assume, like Art goes on like one of his like weird killing sprees where he just indiscriminately kind of murders a lot of people. But also dresses up like Santa Claus for a good portion of the movie because it is Christmas this time instead of Halloween. And one of the kills is actually like, you don't see something like it happen too often in movies. He goes and pretends to be Santa Claus at a mall. And he's wearing like a very dirty at this point Santa costume with like a fake beard. Definitely has some like dried blood and stuff on him, but still has like the weird clown face thing going on. And he starts like handing out presents to the kids, which creates like a little bit of like a riot with the children. And then he gets kind of like kicked out of the mall by security because the real Santa shows up. But it turns out he also planted a bomb in one of the packages and was just waiting for one of the children to open the package before it blows up and kills all of the children and their parents. And Merry Christmas. But then it sort of it transitions to Art and the first movie's victim, who I just don't remember her name. That's why I keep referring to her that way. Making their way to the final girl from the second movie's house and very viciously murdering her aunt in front of her. Threatening to murder the cousin who's like 11 or 12. And then the girl finally actually like getting out of the like chair she was strapped to and getting the apparently magic sword that she made in the first movie or in the second movie to like battle Art and his chainsaw. So it's a sword versus a chainsaw. Because why the fuck not? And they have like this fight, and then a pit to hell opens up. And Art, the victim from the first movie, and the cousin all fall into the pit to hell along with the sword. So there's absolutely going to be a fourth movie. I can't imagine there not being, where like I'm assuming the surviving girl has to go to hell to like rescue her cousin and like fight demons or something. Because that seems like something this movie would do, or this movie franchise would do. It's also one of those like we looked it up as we were watching it. This movie had a $2 million budget. So if you use like the general idea that if it's a $2 million budget to film, it's probably like a $4 million budget with marketing. And if we even bump that up to say 6, so like even more marketing, which it didn't have. This movie made like 98 million in the box office. Like it made so much money. There's no way they won't do another one with probably like a slightly higher budget, but nothing too crazy. Because it seems like the guy who writes and directs it does like to kind of lean into both the campy like 80s-ness and also like the practical effects when it comes to like all the blood and like gore and stuff, because doing that in CG I feel like would look a little too realistic nowadays and would take away from some of like just the over top kind of humor you get of just how absolutely ridiculous it is. Whereas when it's practical effects, you're like, oh, that looks like a fucking like mannequin hand that just got cut off. But yeah, weird fucking movie, a lot of fun. And it was a Christmas movie, which made it even better that we watched it in December.
It's crazy.
Yeah. You know, we watched 2 of them in October for Halloween. Now we get to watch a 3rd one in December for Christmas. It's like a Christmas miracle.
Christmas miracle.
But yeah, I did tons of just over the top like gory stuff in these movies. So like, there's not a lot of like narrative stuff to talk about. And like I said, the actual like violence in the movie, it's so over the top that like, it's not even like watching like a Saw movie or what were those other fucking just like murder porn movies, the Hostel movies, where like that stuff like made you cringe because it looked so like painful and real. Like in Saw 2, like when like the person has to like put their hand in like the razor blade box where like once their hand's in there, if they pull it out, they're just like shredding their skin with razor blades, or the fucking hypodermic needle pit that the one woman gets thrown into. Like none of this makes like, I'm sorry, there have been like 2 scenes throughout the 3 movies where like we like visibly cringed away from it because it was just like, what the fuck is going on? Normally it's like, okay, yeah, no, that is so over the top and fake looking that it's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like he chainsawed like a guy in half. Like nothing about that looked real. But yeah. Fun.
You saw the first
Ish.
2 of this one, right? I think I remember you talking about it.
Yeah, we talked about it like in October and like the first week of November.
Yeah.
Hence why I've been referring to the first movie and the second movie this whole time. Thanks for paying attention, Richard.
Look, I got distracted for a second, okay?
I listened to everything you said about my time at Sandrock and Demon Souls.
Exactly.
And we don't even know if Drew is still here.
Am I?
He's asleep.
I think Drew's grandma is here.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, that's Terrifier 3. Rich, how is Landmarks?
So Landmarks is super fun. I enjoyed it. If you like word association games, if you like word association in general, it can be super entertaining. If you're not good at word association, or if you're somebody that just like might overthink, then this might not necessarily be the game for you. But basically, it's super easy. It's super easy to pick up, low barrier of entry. You get your cards. It tells you where to place your 3 starting tiles, and it gives you the 3 words to place on there. These words are suggestions. You don't have to use them, but you can. But it tells you how to place them and where to place them, and then you go from there trying to associate. We talked about this a little bit last week. You associate the 2 words with the next move that you want to make, or two or all 3, depending on the positioning of the platform, on the next move you want to make. And you can either land on a spot that has gold, a blank spot, a spot that has a spike trap, or a spot that has curse, or even a spot that gives you a talisman, or the exit. If you land on the exit without getting any gold, you lose. If you land on the exit with a curse and some gold, you lose. You want to remove the curse before you take the exit. You can if you get cursed twice, you're automatically out, even if you remove the first one, because there's only 1 talisman on the map. And the whole point is it's like Codenames, where one player is giving all the clues, or is writing the words and putting them down, and then the rest of the group is trying to figure out what you're trying to tell them to do. We might have stretched the rules a little bit from time to time by, like, for instance, if we had a tile that had a bunch of open spaces and we were trying to guide them in a certain direction, we would write it like diagonally upwards or diagonally downwards to be like, hey, go up, go down, something like that. It doesn't say in the rules that you can't do that. The only thing that really specifies in the rules are you can't write directions as guidance. So, like, you can't write left, right, north, south, east, west, northwest. You can't write stuff like that. It has to be words that associate with the word before it. And then you also can't write a word that's like part of a word that's already on the map. So if you write baseball, you can't write ball. Or if you write football, or I don't know why sports is the only thing coming to mind. But like, I don't know. Say banana bread. I don't know if banana bread's one word or two. It's two words, so that wouldn't work because you can only do one word words. You can't. Hyphenated is fine, but one word words. But you think of any sort of hyphenated word that's two different words, you can't do and then a singular after that. So at one point I had written night, Knight, night, and they put it down, and I was trying to figure out how to move forward. Well, like I think I wrote horse was going to be one of my options, and they put it on a bad spot. So then I wrote like rider, and like a horse has a rider, or I was even thinking of doing like Clydesdale as a type of horse, things like that. Like that's, you do word associations, you can do proper nouns, things like that, but like it just can't share. Like sometimes some people will get really will think really far into it. Like one of the words I think was like liberty, and the other word was like angry or mad. And so somebody wrote the name of their coworker, and they work at the place they work at has the word liberty in their job. And the word was specifically meant for their husband to guess. Oh, angry, liberty, this person's name, boom, it goes to that spot because that's what they're trying to say. And it took them a second or two to figure out, well, why did they write this person's name? And like that, I wouldn't say that that's like within that is within the realm of there's no rules against this. But again, it's like you are specifically looking at one person to get this. And if that one person doesn't get it, like you kind of messed yourself up, because how are you then going to connect? If they put it anywhere else that doesn't work where you just put it, then how are they going to connect that? Or if they're at a complete loss and just like find a random spot to place it, you don't know. Now, sometimes you can use context clues. All right, they started moving down, so you want to keep moving downward. But other times, who knows what you're going to put. But it was really fun. We played the there's 3 card types. There is the competitive mode card types. There's the beginner, and there's the they call it beginner and regular. We mostly played the regular card types, which those maps are hard. And the difference between them is there's more curses, there's more traps to get caught in. The whole like gameplay loop is you have 7 tiles. That is your water. And every time you pull one of those 7 tiles, you write the thing down. You're using one of your water cans to explore more of the map. If you find a water tile, you refill up to 7 on your tile and you keep going. But if you hit a spike trap, you only refill up to 6. If you hit another spike trap, you only refill up to 5. And so on and so forth. And so like there's more. And sometimes you gotta kind of just like take the L and be like, all right, well, I can lead them in the path of the curse, or I can just lose 1 or 2 total waters and lead them down the spike traps. Like, it gives you less turns overall if, like, you run out of, like, available turns and there's only limited water spaces around the map. But it's like, you gotta figure out that balance of which way you want to go. Ultimately, you want to go around the map to a point where you don't want to, where you're not touching any of the bad stuff. But, like, some of the regular, quote, regular or intermediate cards, they had the weirdest, like, not weirdest, but, like, the most difficult way to go where, like, there's not a lot of free space. And a lot of the times our mapping tended to be just going along one set of tiles. So, like, after you get your initial 3, you start in a course. You start to the left, and then you just kind of keep going to the left. But it's like, all right, well, which way specifically do they want me to go? And it becomes kind of a guessing game at one point or another. of like, all right, do they want us to go directly left? Do they want us to go up left, down left? Like, do they want diagonal? Like, it did get a little, like, I don't know how you're supposed to do this fully and not get affected by things. The other, the other rule I think is, like, not the best is if you get two, what's it called? Two curses, game over. Because there's only one talisman, it makes sense. But, like, you can get the talisman first and then negate with a one curse. But then if you get the second curse, you can't negate that. Or if you get a curse and then find the talisman, it negates that curse. But, like, to me, it should be you can negate, like, the talisman cures one curse. To me, the idea should be the talisman cures every curse you have. But once you get the talisman, you can't, if you get the talisman before you're cursed, it doesn't affect anything. That's the way
it's
I
like
think.
Legend is a Hidden Temple. You get the one pendant, and you can ward off one temple guard.
Yeah, but then, like, that
You
kind
still
of...
gotta put that fucking monkey together.
If you find the other one, you're fucked.
Yeah, but that Legends of the Hidden Temple had two players, so the other player would then get to run through the whole thing and maybe avoid the third person. Like, to me, it's just, like, the later game gets, like, the regular style game gets rough, because there are, I believe it was 5, I don't have the box with me right now, I should have had it. I believe it was 4 curses, there were 5 curses on the map, but only 1 talisman to heal you. So, like, you are really set to lose when you're playing the regular style, like the intermediate, whatever you want to call it, the normal game. They're like, you're set to lose because you only have one single path generally that you can walk around. You can't really branch off that far. And if you get cursed, you're kind of screwed because, like, it's random, the placement of the map. We played a couple of games. What did we do? I think we did like 6 or 7 games. It was a good time, but to me, I think I would set up the house rule to change it up to where if you get the talisman before you have curses, you can cure the first curse you get. But if you wait to get the talisman until you have multiple curses, then you recover all the curses you have on you. But then you lose the talisman. So if you get a curse after that, you lose.
The problem with that is it then completely negates really the curses mattering.
Not really. Not really, because we could still end up accidentally finding the exit.
Sure.
While still being cursed. Or we
you now don't really have to care about the curses if you can just negate all of them. Like,
I get that, but at the same time, when there's that many curses, but only one cure to the curse, to me, it gets a little bit of a... This is kind of it's a little bit of a letdown, where it's like, when I'm working off of just one line of words, based on the cards we were getting, that's what we were coming off of, was most of the time the path we were going was just a single line. And we were just going straight down, or straight to the left, or straight to the right. Like, nothing... We weren't branching off and being able to connect more than a single word because of the cards we were getting. Like, maybe you kind of want to just eat that curse to try to get through, but then you have to find your way to reasonably, you would have to find your way to the what's it called? To the talisman once you eat that curse, to just have a branching path, to have an alternate path. Like, there's one set path to me. And that's like, that kind of... To me, it makes it a little less of the idea of word association, because it's now a guessing game of where do you want us to put this word that connects to just the one word you just put. And that to me is kind of a little frustrating, because it's like, all right, we have you just put a word down, and the next word you're placing doesn't connect to anything but the word you just placed. So where there do you want us to go? We could avoid, whereas, like, you know, if it was like, all right, if the talisman negates all active curses, then it opens up the idea of like, all right, now that's just another objective is to get the talisman before we leave. And it opens up the map a little bit more on the later games. Or on the normal games. It felt a little like it was incredibly disappointing where losing when you have two talismans because I'm working off of one line and there's nothing really I can do from that because of the way the map is laid out.
This game seems like it's like it could be like 5 different games. Just like listening to you talk about it.
Yeah. It's got it feels like a lot of different games. It's like the primary part of the game is word association, but there's a lot of different things going on with it because you are map building and things like that. It was really cool. I enjoyed it, but like I don't know. I would play around with the possible like homebrew rule or something like that, just because, especially in the normal mode, it just feels a little. It feels a little. It's stacked too much against you in the regular mode.
Oh no! It sounds like you just need to get better.
Again, like it's not about getting better. It's about, all right, I played knight and then I played horse, but knight was only touching one other card, one other thing, and it's, what is it, 6? Was it a hex? So I think was it 6 things? There's 3 open spots. Which of those 3 am I guiding you to? And then it's a guessing game. It's not like I couldn't connect horse with knight with whatever I had before it, because the 2 spots between that were both either curses or spike traps or something. And so, like, I could have dealt with taking the damage, or I could have just been like, all right, well, it's random, and one of these 3 is the right way to go. The other 2 are also traps. So, like, rather than having to, like, worry about that, having a little bit more space to work with, and being like, all right, well, if you get cursed 2 times, that you're fine. Or maybe just homebrew the getting it cures 2 curses. And to where then if you get 3, you're out, or something like that. It's the idea that it's only 1 curse cured. I like the idea that if like you have it, if you get the talisman after the curse, after X amount of curses, you recovers those curses. But like if you get it before the curses, it only recovers 1. I like that. That still builds that strategy.
Yeah, some of this stuff actually does sound pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a really cool game. It's really fun. Like I said, it's really easy to get into, really easy setup. You just put the board down. Like, it's not hard to put together at all. It's a really fun game. Like I said, I have like 2 hours of recorded video of us playing, so I'll get more into the nitty gritty when I'm cutting that together and reviewing the content and whatnot. But like it was really fun. I liked it. I love playing games from them. They're like all the games that I've gotten from Floodgate, right? I'm always blanking. I'm terrible. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Floodgate. I'm so terrible. But all the games I've gotten from Floodgate and any game I've played from them, I've had a blast at. Like I've had a lot of fun. It's just the worst part is I'm bad at reading instructions and knowing how to play games. So like I always need somebody else to read instructions. So we always miss one thing here or there whenever we're playing. But still, it was really cool. I like that.
Yeah, it does actually sound like a cool. Yeah. Like it would be a cool game.
They sent us an email today, like talking about Landmarks, and Landmarks has already sold out its first 2 print runs. And they're going to be trying to get some Barnes and Noble placement coming in February. So like this game is flying off shelves.
Okay, marketing man.
I'm just letting you know. I'm letting you know what the developer let us know.
Nice. Anything else you want to say about it?
No, that's about it.
Good. I'm done listening to it.
Fine.
No, I'm just kidding. Sounds like it's a fun game. How many players was it up to?
2 to 10.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a party game. You have one person being the clue giver, and everyone else can debate on the clues.
10, even with some of those games, like 10 is not normally the number you see.
Yeah, but like that's even like you don't even have to go with 10. You can go with more. Like
Yeah, I was gonna say realistically, it's two. You need two people, and then any number over two.
Yeah, they probably they probably put a limit at 10 because like who knows how bad an argument could get when it comes to like word association like this.
And some games, once you get past a certain number, like they just become less fun for everybody, and that's usually what they factor into it. Is like, all right, this was how many people we had where it stopped being fun.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you talk to them, they'll be like, yeah, so you can play up to 10, but we really recommend like 6.
Yeah.
6 is the sweet spot.
Yes.
Nice. All right. Well, I guess we will move along then.
Mm-hmm.
So, over the last 2-ish weeks, week and a half, I read the final book in the first half of the Stormlight Archive, Wind and Truth. So the series is being split into two 5-book chunks, and Sanderson is taking like a 5 to 8 year break after this book before working on the next one. He's going to work on some other books and some other series that he's done over the time. I forgot to make a timestamp. Hang on. Sorry. So this one is kind of wrapping up not all of, but most of sort of the plot threads that have been going on since the first book, Way of Kings. And it picks up almost immediately after book 4, Rhythm of War. And this book, unlike all the previous ones, actually just takes place over 10 days. So usually these books have like parts, and each part is anywhere from 10 to 30 chapters. And then between the parts will be like 2 to 3 interludes where it's usually a chapter, or like the interlude is a chapter itself that focuses on a different character that's not a reoccurring POV throughout the book. And most of these books span either weeks or months. I think one of them actually is probably around a year of time over the course of the whole book. And there's usually some jumps in time between books, whether it's a few weeks, a few months. I want to say between books 3 and 4 is a year and a half. And then this book picks up days after the end of the previous book, where it ends with kind of the guy in charge making a challenge to the god who is trying to take over the world. That they will each have a champion fight in 10 days to determine kind of whether the god has to back off and stop doing his shit, or if he can just take over the entire world and then potentially the entire like universe that's going on here. So the book is the 10 days leading up to that, and kind of like these different groups of people preparing for it in different ways. So the bad guys are basically attacking all of the major cities on this planet, because the challenge as written is any territory that a party holds before the competition starts in 10 days, if the good guys win, that party will retain what they held, essentially. So the bad guy is just like, I'm going to just get as much territory as I possibly can. This way, even if I lose somehow, I still basically control the entire world except for like 1 or 2 spots. So a lot of the book is these couple different forces kind of like protecting these like major cities to essentially like hold those kingdoms. And then you have Dalinar, who is kind of the leader of the good guys at this point, traveling through like the memories of the world, essentially, to try and figure out where the god Honor died. So I don't know if I've ever talked about it when I've talked about like these books before, but at some point in this like shared universe, the Cosmere, there was like a single god that kind of ruled over everything. And at some point, thousands of years prior, tens of thousands of years prior, a group of mortals got together and fucking killed him and shattered him into a bunch of different pieces that they call shards. And those shards tend to be these wells of power that end up kind of locked to a specific planet or like system in this shared universe. And they're all mostly named after like either feelings or like descriptive adjectives. So in the Mistborn books, the two kind of opposing forces in that were ruin and preservation. So ruin was always trying to destroy everything, while preservation was trying to save everything. And eventually in those books, the two get combined by a single being and become harmony, because those two powers technically work in harmony together when they're actually balanced. In the Stormlight books, the primary god of these worlds was Honor, and at some point, thousands of years before, he died, and his power has just been missing for thousands of years. Meanwhile, kind of like the bad god is Odium, which I have no fucking clue if that means anything. And he has been alive, but has been locked away on basically a planet that is used as hell in this universe. At anytime the bad guys die, they go to this planet that is hell, and then there are a bunch of good guys who go with them to basically hold them there. And they spend centuries being tortured until eventually one of them can't take it anymore and gives up and is resurrected on their planet, allowing the evil beings to come back. And so this 5-book chunk of the series is basically like the culmination of like thousands of years of like this stuff happening and these shitty cycles and sort of the forces of good like falling completely away over like the last 1,000 years, and people basically forgetting that those things really existed, and then them sort of coming back and the people of power coming back and all sorts of shit happening. So Dalinar is basically going through the history of this planet, trying to figure out like what the fuck happened to Honor so that he can try and find that power to use it to stop Odium, the bad guy. And it goes poorly for him. Like, he spends 10 days just having the worst fucking time. And a bunch of other people kind of like inadvertently get sucked into that with him. Meanwhile, you have one of his sons is off like actually trying to protect a city like that's being like just destroyed the whole time. And the third kind of like really main character is off basically on like a buddy cop mission with a character who was a bad guy in the first 2.5 books and is now like a good guy, but is also like he's mentally and emotionally broken. So like Kaladin is like the good guy that we followed for all these books. He's basically trying to help this guy, like he's trying to help his mental state and like show him that like everything will be okay, because he spent 4 books realizing that like it's okay to be depressed and that not everything will always be terrible. Because that's one thing in these books, like a lot of the characters struggle with like different like super common mental health things, and while they're not always like subtly handled, he at least does like involve like doctors and specialists and stuff like that in like figuring out how to properly talk about and address these things so that they don't feel kind of heavy-handed or anything. But a lot of there's a good chunk of this book that really is like characters just dealing with mental health. And yeah. But between all of that, there's just all these incredibly hype moments where characters like, so one of the things in this book is characters will say ideals, and depending on sort of the group that they fall into, it will unlock like the next stage of like magic powers for them. Because that's basically, it's a fantasy book. Like, there's magic powers. So it's a lot of like characters like figuring out the next ideal for their particular branch and like saying it. And in some cases, like one character actually skips one. He thinks that he has to find the fourth ideal before he can find the fifth and like actually complete his mission. But when everything's kind of just gone to shit, he finally like kind of comes to his senses and just immediately says the fifth ideal and like skips over the fourth one. And everyone's just like, can you even do that? And then like the book kind of, you know, plays to a point kind of like, I kept thinking of Empire Strikes Back while it was kind of coming to the end of it, where the good guys don't technically lose, but they also don't win. So like the confrontation with the god, Dalinar ends up just letting him merge both of the powers of odium and honor and become kind of the most powerful being on the planet. Because that will then cause all of the other gods in the universe to like pay attention to him so that he can't just kind of go run amok and do whatever he wants. It kind of like locks him to that planet even more. And then other characters like sacrifice themselves basically. And while they might not be dead, they're no longer human like they were. And everyone they know just assumes they're dead is how it ends. And we know that there's going to be some sort of time skip in the next section. So there's a chance that some of these characters that like we end the book where they're, you know, 20 something, 30 something, they might be dead or in their 80s when the next one comes around. And then these characters that kind of like sacrifice themselves are going to come back in their prime, like in their like mid 20s, early 30s. And it's going to be sort of a shock moment where like their loved ones thought they were dead and had no way to know that they weren't really dead until like the storm kind of comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was a really good end to the first arc. Not perfect. There were certain things that didn't get wrapped up in like a satisfying way. There's a few characters that, especially antagonist characters, that kept popping up throughout the book, but then never actually got dealt with. There's one character that has been in it since the first book, and he's that character where like he starts out where he's a good guy, but he's kind of an asshole, and by like the end of the second book, he's kind of betrayed everybody and gone to the bad guys. And in the fourth book, he actually kills people that are prominent characters. In this book, he kills more characters, and there's like one moment where he's almost confronted by like the good guys, but he just runs away, and there's no real closure to that story. And it's like, if they're taking like a decades or longer time jump, like there's no way he is still going to be around or be in any way like formidable for that to feel like a satisfying ending.
Mm-hmm.
And then some other stuff just kind of got left open in weird ways that I'm interested to see where it goes, but I also kind of wish it would have just had a little bit more of a satisfying closure so that we can go into the next stage of the series almost with like a fresh slate. Either like knowing that these characters are just going to be gone by the time the next thing starts, or knowing we're going to see like where we're leaving them now. Like one character is literally trapped in like a parallel dimension, unable to get out, and I think pregnant. And it's like, cool, are we just going to see her as like an old lady now with like a grown child, or will something else happen? Like, will we get flashbacks in the next book? Like, who knows? I don't.
Yeah, to me that's weird. Like I'm not judging his writing style or anything like that. I understand wanting to take time off from writing the series that's been so big in his life that like to write other stuff. But like if you're gonna give me like what you said, like 5 to 10 years off of writing this book and releasing this book series to do other stuff, then you need to like kind of wrap up everything that's going on and then bring it back in the next one. If you get
Yeah.
what I'm saying, like
I
to
mean,
me
and
that's
that's
weird
what
to
I
have.
was saying too. Like having a few things dangling, sure, like open up some new doors for like the next arc, but give a little more closure on the existing stuff.
My best example I can give is when Bleach ended the anime. It ended the anime. There was nothing hanging. It was all done. And then when like we all knew that there was still more. We all knew there was another thing. They just weren't doing the anime anymore. But it was over. There was nothing left to question. And then they brought back Thousand Year Blood War, and they brought it right back. And they were like, well, here's actually what's been happening in the... I think, like, in the anime, it was like a couple of years. I don't know how long. But it wasn't 10 years like it was in real life. But it was a couple of years in the anime. It's like, here's just what's been happening in the past few years. And that's kind of what he should have done, was like, hey, let's wrap up everything. Let's not have any questions, and let's have everyone have a fairly satisfying wrap up, so that in 10 years from now, this, for instance, the character you're talking about, who's going to be forever old and killed a bunch of people, like maybe wrap him up satisfying, but still have some sort of twist where even if it is 20 years later, this dude is still a formidable foe.
Yeah, or at least give us like an idea of where he was left, because it really was like so. Yeah. So in this book, there are like these like spiritual creatures that they are certain ones will be able to grant powers to like humans if they say like the right oaths. Like the whole series is about oaths. And this bad guy has a weapon that can actually kill these creatures that previously couldn't be killed. The closest thing that could happen is if a human like intentionally broke the oath, it sort of crippled the other being. They became what was called like a dead eye. Like they were just kind of almost like a zombie. Like they just kind of wandered in their like dimension, like aimlessly. But even in this book, like those dead eyes start to come back. Like they start to be able to interact and be useful again. And the one character who is the son of like the guy in charge, he's actually like pivotal in kind of that happening, and like not bonding with one the way that like the other characters do, because that's what when they say their oaths, they're considered to have a bond, but like bonding and like forming like a friendship with one of these things. They're called Spren, for what it's worth. And so this guy, like in book 4, kills like one of the main character Sprens, and then kills him at like the end of the book, and that is sort of like a catalyst that then pushes the main character Kaladin to kind of like to his lowest point before then bringing him up to like his highest point. And then that guy flees because now the one guy that could just wreck him is at his highest point. Mm-hmm. In this book, he then pops up a bunch and does kind of the same thing. He actually, the one character who is like leading like a section of the army actually intentionally breaks his oath, knowing that it'll kind of cripple like his partner, so that the bad guy can't kill her. And it has like an emotional impact on him too. And then the guy just turns around and gets ready to kill him instead. And the only thing that stops him is the rest of kind of like the original group from the first 2 books shows up. And like you expect maybe there's going to be like a big confrontation there, but literally the guy just runs away. Like just flat out runs the fuck away. And that's the last you see of him. And that's like, I don't know, 3/4 through the book, maybe a little bit more than that. And so there's just never like we've wanted to see somebody just at least fuck him up a little bit since the second book, and we just don't get that. And it's alluded at the end of this one that it could be a century before, like, or not 70 to 100 years is kind of like what's alluded to. Is how much time might pass between like the book 5 and book 6. And it's like, man, like they just live normal human length lives. Like there's nothing special about him other than the weapon he has. It's not going to make him immortal or anything. So, like, do we just not get, like, a satisfying end? Is it one of those, like, the satisfying end is him living in misery for 70 years or something? But, yeah. I think, and to like what you were saying about, like, him taking all this time off to write other stuff, I think part of the reason, too, is, like, he writes this big shared universe like the MCU, and he's going to go write other pieces in it that are tying back to this series in big ways. Like, these last 2 books in Stormlight were heavily tied to stuff in another one of his series. And he has to do, like, the next arc in that series to make this one, like, I feel like to make this one make sense. Because one of the things at the end of this one is basically how we find out that it could be 70 years is because these 2 powers of the god merged. That world is in, like, a weird, like, temporal bubble now where the time in there is moving slower than the rest of the universe. So they think that it's going to be about 10 years on planet before things even out, but it'll be 70 to 100 years outside of it, which is where we're kind of getting, like, how much time might pass. So I guess actually at that point, maybe it will only be 10 years for the characters in the books. I had not thought about that until I said it out loud. So it might only be 10 years for the characters, like, on the planet, while, like, everybody else, it's been 100 years. Because a bunch of people did kind of, like, get taken off planet. So we shall see in, like, a decade when book 6 comes out.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, there's Mistborn. So he'll do Era 3 and Mistborn, and that'll kind of tie into this somehow.
There's a lot of books. There's so many books.
There are a lot of books. And
They're huge.
I mean, like, not all the books are huge. Like these books are very large, yes. But, like, the Mistborn ones are, like, 300 or 400 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not too bad.
Yeah.
But, yeah, books. They're fun.
Yeah. Odium means intense hatred or dislike, especially toward a person or thing regarded as contemptible, despicable, or repugnant.
Okay, so that kind of works with, like, the whole odium and honor stuff.
Yeah.
I guess one thing I wasn't mentioning is all of these, like, shards of these gods with these silly names, they're held by mortals. Mm-hmm. So, like, a mortal takes on the power and then becomes, like, the personification of the god. And, like, doesn't just live like a normal person with god powers, like, transcends to being a god and can kind of, like, do whatever they want. But if somebody has a weapon that can kill them, they will die, and that power will kind of become untethered for somebody else to inherit. So that's kind of like how that all happened. The 2 original hosts for Odium and Honor both died. Honor thousands of years ago, Odium in book 3 or book 4, and other people ended up taking on those powers. So, yeah, it's interesting. Not perfect,
nice.
But interesting and fun.
Nice.
And yeah, that's all I've got.
Nice.
That might be a show.
Yeah,
that's a show.
Drew, how's your voice feeling?
What?
Exactly.
Yeah, no. Bad. It's feeling bad.
Go drink some hot water.
Maybe.
Or like put like a hot cloth on your throat or something.
I was going to go stand in the hot shower for a little while.
Yeah, that is also a good idea. All right. Well, with all of that said, I think next week we are going to be talking about Scrooged.
Yes.
For our next book club. And then if you want to find more of our content, you can head over to www.one-quest.com.
Oh. When are we recording next week?
Monday?
Okay.
Monday work?
Yeah.
Drew?
Sure.
Okay. Monday next week.
We'll see if I have a voice by next week.
Yeah. I might release it on Tuesday just to release it before Christmas. We'll see. But yeah, if you'd like to find more of our content, www.one-quest.com. You can also help us out by supporting us at patreon.com/onequest. If you can't support us here at $8, though, you can go to your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. Rate us, review us, subscribe to us. All of it helps. You can also find us on social media, facebook.com/onequestonline, or at @1_quest on Instagram and Twitter. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/onequestvideo, and you can always send us an email to social@one-quest.com. And Rich, what is your streaming stuff looking like?
Twitch.tv/b_1us for video game streaming and game streaming in general, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Immortals Phoenix Rising is what we're primarily focusing on beating. Sea of Thieves, and potentially more Monster Hunter, but I was doing some crown hunting last night, and I wasn't feeling it, so we might not be doing Monster Hunter until March, so who knows? We'll see. But come hang out. I can't really say what we're playing because it's really a day-to-day basis on how I'm feeling. So just come hang out.
Nice. Yeah, with that, we will be back next week with something else to talk about. Thanks for listening. Bye.
See yous. Bye.